FPNO, Mayor.
Yeah, the FPNO girl, right?
Heidi seems to think if I wear that shirt and the mayor wears his.
Ready?
I haven't seen him yet.
I
We
saw him
flew
just
in. I
now.
was out of town this
Call
weekend.
the roll, please.
Mayor Bain,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Councilman Best, Councilwoman Zapata,
Present.
Councilman Petrolanda.
Here.
We have invocation by Vice Mayor Mitchell. Please stand.
Oh, Heavenly Father, we ask you for your blessings. We ask that you watch over those of us here in the council meeting, residents, visitors, and the council staff and the employees. Guide us.
Amen. We have the Cub Scouts from Pack 425 coming up here, and they're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag's this way. Flag's here. Flag's here.
Go, guys.
Okay? All right. Start. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Now you wanted to go ahead and say the Scout Oath? Turn around and you say it to the...
Oh, wow.
So they're going to introduce themselves. Okay. Give me your name and how old you are and how long you've been a Cub Scout.
My name is Chris.
Okay. And how old are you, Chris?
6.
All right. And you?
Angela.
And how old are you, Angela?
5.
Right.
My name is Hollis. I'm 7 years old.
7 years old.
My name is Devin. 8 years old.
8 years old.
8 years old. No, you're 10. No, but I was.
Okay, that's okay.
Lying about his age already.
That's okay. It's okay. Now, relax. Now, how old are you?
10 years old.
Okay. That's all right. I'd like to say how old I am and
Older,
forget that
you know,
too. All right, your name and how old you are. You two are brothers, right? That's why you're arguing. Go ahead.
That's why he knew, too.
My name is Dylan, and I'm 8 years old.
Okay.
My name is Billy, and I'm 8 years old.
Boy, that's a beautiful name, Billy.
My name is Vincent, and I'm 9 years old.
Vincent.
My name is Fabian, and I'm 10 years old.
Years old. What do you think about your Scoutmasters? What are,
Cubmaster is Vincent.
Cubmaster, Vincent?
He was my assistant last year, and now this year he's the Cubmaster, and I'm working with the older boys to get them ready to go over to the troop 334.
Gotcha. And that's your father, huh? We were at the tree lot together, huh? Remember?
This is for me.
Remember? Let's give him a little applause for this. Okay,
That was cool.
Tom Nash. This is a proclamation for Tom Nash from the city of Miami Springs, whereas it is appropriate to recognize those individuals who contribute for the good and welfare of the community. Whereas Tom Nash donated to the construction of the new courtyard at the Curtis Mansion, which was named in memory of his wife, Lisa Nash, and a contribution that will benefit the Curtis Mansion and the city of Miami Springs for many years. Tom Nash was born and raised in Miami Springs, son of Wayne and Rhonda Nash, attended Miami Springs Elementary, Miami Springs Middle School, and Miami Springs High School. I never saw you there, but I believe it.
Wouldn't have.
A little younger than me. Thanks a lot. Tom married his wife, Lisa, also a longtime resident of Miami Springs, and raised his 3 children with, where's that? Christy,
Kevin, and Katrina.
Christy, Kevin, and Katrina. That was a bad storm.
Still is.
Tom Nash has worked for the City of Miami Springs Public Works Department since 1992, where he began as a utility service worker 1, and now serves as Public Works Director of the city. And whereas one characteristic of the distinguished Tom's career as a public servant in his enormous capabilities of serving the community, and he has called home for his entire life. Whereas Tom Curtis earned the respect of many civic leaders and affection of many residents in the city of Miami Springs. And now, therefore, Billy Bain and the City Council of today's date, 12/9/2019, is Tom Nash Day. Congratulations, Tom. And you're gonna say something, aren't you? Okay, very little.
Do you want to be in the picture?
And his family.
Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead. They can take. You want to take it? Well, they surprised him. They surprised him, so it'd be nice for them to have a picture with their father.
You're good.
I'm not going to take up too much of everybody's time. There were many hands that were involved with the courtyard over at the mansion, and I'm humbled by this, and I could only wish that Lisa was here to celebrate this with us instead of about her. But I will forever be grateful for this moment. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
I thought it was appropriate because, that we always have them proclamations and we read it, but really, as long as I've been here since 2003, he's always available for all council and everybody here, and he's always cordial, and he always thinks about the best things for the city and the residents of Miami Springs. So I thought it was appropriate to give him this on the fact of what he's done as an individual. I didn't want it to make it an employee type thing. I wanted to make it more of what he's done as a person for this community than as an employee, and that's what's special about him.
Yep. Well done, Mayor.
Chief, you have the floor. I'm sorry, you're waiting for me. You never did before, Chief. Come on. Let's get this going.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and everyone present here tonight, welcome. As I've said previously, this is probably one of my favorite things I do as a chief of police, and that is promoting qualified and capable individuals. Robert Castillo began his career with the Miami Springs Police Department as a public service aide in 2011. Approximately 2 years later, in 2013, he became a police officer. He's a graduate of Miami Springs High. He holds a two-year degree from Miami-Dade College. He's received several commendations, so many in his file, and several unit citations. His training classes have included his Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Action Tactics for Active Shooter, Incident Command System, National Incident Management System, General Investigations, Interviews, Interrogations. He's served as an officer in charge, meaning an acting supervisor when a sergeant hasn't been available. He has served as a field training officer, which we have used his expertise a lot during the last year because we've hired a lot of new officers. He's also attended opioid overdose prevention and autism for law enforcement officers. So with that said, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sergeant Robert Castillo.
All right.
Very appreciative. I look forward to the opportunity to work with the community closer. Like I said, I look forward to working closer with the community as well as molding the future of this department. Thank you very much.
You want to take a picture? Take a picture with everybody? Come on, Mama.
Yeah. Tilly, come on now.
Wait, let me get out of the background.
So cute.
She got you anyway. She got you.
Picture with the grandparents. Come on. Grace, Grace, Grace.
This happens to be my grandson.
Oh no, it's the worst.
My brother, who's also a sergeant here, my cousin Brian.
Yeah, Billy, let it go.
He likes me. It's the only one that likes me for me.
Congratulations, Robert.
It's okay.
I'm so excited. Sergeant, thank you. Good job. Do a good job now. Take care of that kid. All right, I should have stayed
Oh
down.
my gosh, he's beautiful. Cute. He's so cute.
You guys can go if you want. You guys can go. You don't have to stay.
Alfredo and Mary Granado, come on up.
Thank you.
Certification of recognition presented to Alfredo and Miriam Gonzalo.
Granado.
Granado. It's a tough thing, this job. It's a tough gig. You know, and I shake all the time. That's the problem, too. As much as I've done this, it's still, it's still tough. 1540 North Royal Poinciana Boulevard, for their home being designated as Yard of the Month for December 2019. Presented this day, this 9th day of December 2019. Congratulations. And here you go, right here, your plaque. There you go. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Got one question for you while you're up here. Do you do the work yourself, or do you?
Yes, I do. Well, my wife and I both do.
Do you do it? Don't hire somebody?
No, we do not hire.
I'm going to get you a better plaque.
Okay, thank you.
You have anything else?
Sometimes we got a little bit of help over our grandson. He's
Okay.
4 years old.
Okay.
A little bit.
Little bit of help. Okay. Congratulations.
so much.
Thank
Be
you so
safe.
much.
Be good.
Yeah,
Be good.
appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. What's up there next? Florida Power and Light. You have the floor, Florida Power and Light.
I'm gonna try.
More than enough. Mayor Bain, council staff, thank you for allowing me to come here and speak. My name is Dominic Versailles. I'm with Florida Power and Light. We have a program, a pilot program, is electric vehicle charging, and we're working with municipalities and a lot of businesses throughout the state. We're looking to install 1,000 ports, which is about 500 handles throughout the state. What we've seen within our service territory is that we've seen an influx of electric vehicles being purchased in our area, and then there's a direct implication of what's going to happen to the electric grid. And so there's a lot of municipalities out there that want to help, and they want to be able to also provide the constituents some electric vehicle charging. And so we're looking for you guys, because you guys are Miami Springs is one of the leading cities in terms of sustainability and green initiatives, and we'd like to work with you guys to see if we could install these chargers onto your cities. They are at no cost to you. We would install it, maintain it, operate it for 7 years. All we ask is that you provide it as an amenity to your constituents. So we would love to work with you guys. If you have any questions, please reach out to Addis or myself, and I'll gladly come back and talk to you about it. If you have any questions.
Any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you so much for offering. I don't know if my microphone is on. It is okay. Thank you so much for offering this program to municipalities and particularly to us in Miami Springs. I just wanted to ask, my understanding is you're offering these for a short time, like first come, first serve, while they're available, right? So it's something that we need to decide on and ask you while you have a supply available.
Yeah. So right now we're doing it, like I said, we're doing 1,000. We're halfway there, and we're thinking we should be done by February or March. So yeah, if it's oversubscribed, then you would have to be in the waiting list. That is correct.
And usually for a space, for a charger, how many parking spaces do you recommend?
So one charger has 2 handles, and so that's what we're doing. It just depends on where you're going. So Sunny Owls is putting, I think, 12, it's putting 6, and then that's 2 in 3 different garages. I'm not sure if you guys have garages here.
No.
But a lot of times they're putting in garages or they're putting it in parking lots.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you again. Thank you, Addis.
Okay, thank you. We go now to open forum. Anybody wishing to speak?
charger.
Did anybody sign up?
Someone signed.
Nobody signed up? That concludes open forum. 11A. I'm asking council if we can move up 11A for the I forget what it was, but 11A is the ordinance, the first reading of an ordinance. Do we want to read the ordinance? Do you have a presentation for this, or no? You just want to go to the ordinance first, if there's any questions?
11A.
Go ahead. Hi.
Is it on? No. It's an ordinance of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Pivotal Utility Holdings, Inc., a New Jersey corporation doing business as Florida City Gas for use of city rights-of-way for the construction, maintenance, operation, and extension of gas lines and provisions of gas in the city. Approving a non-exclusive franchise agreement prescribing the terms and conditions under which said franchise may be exercised. Authorizing the city manager to finalize and execute said franchise agreement, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for implementation, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date. This is an ordinance on first reading.
First reading. Did I open it up for a public hearing? No? First reading, you'll need it for public hearing? Okay.
Through the chair, will this include any additional lines being installed for gas? Because there are certain places in the city where it'll stop right in the middle, like 1000 block or right in the middle, and it doesn't go up all the way toward Ludlam. Is there any provisioning in there for this? Are we aware?
Well, we have people here representing the
Good. Thanks, Mike.
the company.
I don't think the agreement itself
Doesn't? No, Haiti?
I don't think the agreement itself provides for that, but I'm sure that Ms. Barnes and her colleagues can address it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Monica Barnes, legal counsel on behalf of Florida City Gas, 700 Universe Boulevard, Juno Beach, Florida. I have here my colleague, Mr. Miguel Bustos with Florida City Gas, who can actually discuss the business operations. But yes, to answer your question, we do anticipate constructing additional lines in the city.
A question, if, as far as additional lines, is there any limitation? Because there's been rumors that if not more than 2 people on a block want gas, that you can't put on the block, or is it just going to be something as request would go in?
Yeah, there's always certain cost on expanding the lines. But what we do is we communicate with the community, and whoever is interested in that, we do our calculations to avoid any cost to the community. So we work around the community to see how is best for us to keep expanding our gas lines.
Okay.
So so as the mayor said, as the mayor stated, it's pretty much the same formula as it was when it was Hialeah gas. I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we went through that about 20 years ago, and they said, well, no, you got to get 75% of the rest of the block to sign up on this.
Yeah, but it varies now. You know, it just all the rules are we're regulated by the Florida Public Service Commission, so we follow the rules. And then the closest the line are from the homes, the better. So we try to look at the maps and see who's closer, and we expand and go forward. So there's no much of a cost over the cost.
Well, okay.
So,
thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'll attend a motion.
you have a motion to move, sir.
I'll call the vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petralanda?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. We got a second reading, though, in January. Okay, I'm looking to approve the minutes of the 6A, the minutes November 12, 2019, regular minutes.
Through the chair, a
Tonight.
motion to move 6A.
There's something to do with
Yes,
that.
I just need to make a
Rescind your
correction.
motion. Rescind,
Motion rescinded in lieu of the statement.
yeah, go ahead.
Item 11B, the motion was to approve the resolution, not deny, so that just needed to be corrected in this
Okay,
motion.
With the change, motion to move, sir.
Second.
call the vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petralanda?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes, with the change. We go to, these are public hearings. We're going to 8A. This is a case 04-ZP-19. Chris here?
He was. He's outside.
Well, which ones are not going to be, listen,
D and E.
D
D-
and E are deferred.
D and E are deferred.
Yep.
Come in. Come on, Chris, you're on. You're up. You all right? Yes, sir. We're gonna go to the first case, A. Elder Drive.
Got it. Okay, this is a case that is at 510, 520 Elgin Drive. It is coming to you from the Zoning and Planning Board, not from Board of Adjustment, meaning there are no variances for this project. All aspects of the development code are met, including number of units, the height, the density, the parking, setbacks, everything. So this is just merely asking for site plan approval. This is an existing property on Eldon Drive. On the west is the alley before Curtis Parkway. There are 2 existing one-story buildings that contain 4 studio apartments each. So there's an existing 8 studio apartments total. This is a request to build a duplex, a 2-unit, one-story building in the rear, 1,615 square feet, 1,725 square foot under air, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's nicely done. The parking has been met. The 4 spaces will be pulled off of the swale of Eldon Drive and pulled onto private property, and 4 additional spaces, presumably for the duplex units, which are adjacent to that, will be accessible off the alley. It's nicely done. We've been working with Mr. Naranjo for the better part of a year on this one, massaging it a little bit. We're happy with it. We continue to talk to you about the lack of new residential development in the city. Now, it's only 2 units, but they're 2 very nice units. Good green space. They're across from the golf course. And we recommend favorably. There are 11 conditions. Condition number 7 is an error, and that was a vacation from Florida DOT that I apologize, does not belong there. Other than that, we dropped condition 7. We recommend favorably with the 11 conditions as listed.
It's a public hearing, so anybody can speak on this item. So, does anybody want to speak on this item? I open it up to anybody who wishes to speak on it. Yeah. Okay. You can speak if you want. You got to come to the microphone. Sorry. Everybody's got to hear you.
Hi, my name is Humberto Naranjo. I'm the owner of the property. I've been working with Chris for about 1.5 years. A little bit over a year trying to get it because I have the big empty lot. And when I do, some of the apartments do empty and want to rent them out, more people are looking for 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. So I'm building the 2 nice units in the back like that.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this item?
I also just should add that, as I said, we've been working for the better part of a year, and I wish all my applicants were as easy to work with as this applicant has been. And the property is kept in top shape, if any of you have seen it.
I have.
The buildings are in great condition. The grounds, everything is really first rate here. It was a very pleasant surprise when I saw it, and to see the large backyard to accommodate the duplex was another pleasant surprise. So again, we recommend favorably.
Okay, I close the public hearing. I'll entertain discussion or a motion.
I'd just like to say that I drove by there, and it's going to be such a nice addition when it goes up. It's in a perfect location for this, and I can tell that just in the surrounding area, everything that's being done is very nicely done. So, thank you, Chris.
Mayor, if I may, I just wanted to thank the property owner for maintaining your property in such great condition. It really is just nicely, the lawn, the building and everything, and for rental units, that always makes it such a plus for our community, so thank you.
Through the chair, certainly it allows for additional advancement in that area, if you will, and hopefully some of the other property owners in the area might take notes.
Mayor, Chris, so when you say this addition to the property in back of the building, that's the west side, correct?
It is on the west side, and it is we talk about it as an addition. It's additional units added to the property, but it is a completely separate and distinct building from the 2 front buildings on Eldrin with the 4 studios in each. So it's a complete separate building, quite nicely done.
So the parking entrance is going to be through the alley?
The 4 parking spaces will come off of the alley. They will be new spaces, and 4 spaces that are on Eldrin Drive now
on the swale
will be pulled off of the swale and onto private property. So a total of 8 spaces.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. That's all.
Anything else? Can I entertain a motion?
Motion to move 8A, sir.
I'll second it.
Sorry, just it's 8 units in front and 8 parking spaces in front and 8 parking spaces in back. My apologies.
So we have in our
and that's it's 15 required.
But to be clear, we're talking about 4 new units.
2 new units.
2 duplex.
No, 1 duplex, 2 units.
So, but as far as new housing units, just 2. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Motion stands, sir.
I get a second?
I'll second
You
it.
got it? Second it? Call a vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petralanda?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes, we go to B, case 04-V19.
This is a project proposed for 641, 649 Palmetto Drive. This is the last commercial property that is located in the Northwest 36th Street zoning district. The north property line of this property is the southern property line of the single family. So this development would separate multifamily or commercial from single family. There were two fairly rundown single family homes that were on the two lots. They have been demolished. It is the applicant's intention to build a 12-unit apartment building. The zoning maximizes the density. The district has a density of 20 units per acre. With this lot size, that would allow 6 units on the property. The applicant is asking for 12 units. Sounds like a lot, and in a certain sense, when we get into some of the parking and other issues, you may find that you feel that it is. However, this is our highest density district in the city, and most cities that have density caps will usually start at 20 and go up from there. To have your only and highest density to be 20 units per acre is quite low. So we originally talked about 18 units per acre, which we felt was a little too much, and we discussed this and came to a settlement of 12 units. So again, 20 units per acre for the district, 6 units for this property is allowed. 12 units is what is being requested. There are also 3 additional variances to waive the residential use only, that the ground floor had to be commercial. Remember, we looked at something similar to this at 29 Palmetto, where our feeling is that the commercial suffers because on 36th Street is the Bell South Exchange building, basically empty. Things in that general vicinity are not working well commercially. So the idea that someone would turn the corner and come up 500 or 600 feet or more to commercial activity in this lot next to the single family, we didn't think it was realistic or feasible. So we agreed with waiving the commercial component. There is a condition to waive 12 of the 47 vehicular parking spaces with provision of 35 vehicular parking spaces proposed, and a request to waive 6 inches of the minimum required parking space width of 9 feet. Provision of parking space 8 foot 6 inches is proposed. We typically like the 9 feet. 8 feet is probably a more common minimum parking stall width. It's certainly not unheard of. 9 is a little towards the generous. You don't usually see 9 or much more than that. So for the 6 inches, that allowed us to pick up some additional spaces. We also felt that were supportable. As I said, it's 12 units. This is a walk-up building. The ground floor is parking, and there are stairs that will bring you to the second level. You enter all of the units on the second level. They are all 2-story units. So when you enter on the second level, there is also an internal staircase that will bring you to the third level of the apartment. So there's no outside access to the third level of these apartments. You enter at the second floor, which is the first floor of the two-level unit, and then take the stairs up to the third floor. This was recommended favorably by the Board of Adjustment at its meeting in November by a vote of 4-0. Let's see what else I can tell you. I think that's it, and we recommend favorably with the 12 conditions as listed.
Mayor, I have a question.
I was going to open it.
There's just one. Thanks. We are suggesting a 13th condition to provide for a covenant in lieu of unity of title in favor of the city. And that would be subject to the city attorney's approval in a form that we approve, and it would be recorded prior to the issuance of the first building permit.
And that's a standard condition for us. You have a building that sits on two separate lots. You want to make sure that those lots are tied and bound together to create one development parcel. Two lots, one development parcel. The unity of title, or in this case, the covenant in lieu, does just that, binds them together.
Okay.
Mayor, Chris, I was just wondering, where do they recommend you park the extra cars?
Well, that's a good question, and it's one of the things that caused us some pause as we analyze this. Some of the things that will bring you, I think they're pretty obvious that they're a benefit to the city, and we feel really strongly about them. And we always do this wait and see. Whenever you're analyzing something, you're always taught you put here's the good, here's the bad, here's the upside, here's the downside, and see what that list comes out like. The location, the shortage of the parking is one of the problems.
Oh, that is the problem.
Let me say a couple things about it. We have a parking requirement citywide for all of our parking districts except two. The neighborhood business district has its own parking requirement, and the Northwest 36th Street district has its own parking requirement. All the rest of the city is bound by one parking requirement, and if we were to use that, that's a lower number than the Northwest 36th Street. So keep that in mind. In almost every other part of the city, the number, while they would still be short, they would not be as short. I think it was 2 or 3 spaces. It brought it down. The second thing that I would like you to consider is that the parking numbers, as best we can tell, have not changed in 60 years. So our feeling is that the parking requirements are not keeping up with the current state of real estate development. Specifically, of course, we're talking about Uber and ride sharing, things like that. People who work from home so that they may not be coming and going so often. But it's a good point. If we were, and we're going to see a project in a moment up here on Westward Drive, also a bit short on parking, but they've got Westward Drive, they've got they've got our parking lots here behind City Hall. They have the linear parking lots behind the Women's Club and all marching all the way down towards Curtis. So there's a pressure valve there.
You don't have that over there because I drove by.
There's not a good pressure valve
Don't
here,
see it.
other than the swale, which is now being used as, for example, of the apartment building that's on the west side of Palmetto, Fairway and Westward.
You have a huge street too on the swale.
So, and then of course the other option and a concern that some of you have raised to me and that we've discussed amongst ourselves is the other option is to go around and park on the swale of the single-family neighborhood, park on their front yards, and take care of it that way. Now, it is physically blocked by a guardrail. You can't drive there, but certainly you could come around, park there. And there is a concern that that would happen. We weighed that. We don't like it. I'm not happy with that. I wish there were more. I wish there were a better solution. But weighing against that was an isolated lot between single family and a Bell South building that's virtually empty, but yet useful. We've talked with, our city attorney has talked with representatives of Bell South, and they say although the number of people that they require to man that building has dropped dramatically over the years, let's say from 35 employees to 2 or 3, it's so much automated now, but there still needs to be people there. So that building is sort of stuck there. It's not going anywhere. And then we have single family to the north of that. And then we've got these couple lots of single family now demolished and vacant. It's something, we'd like something to go there, obviously, and not just a vacant lot or a weed-strewn lot. Again, as we talked about in the previous, we're short on multifamily residential, new product. This provides that. So there are a lot of things going for it. The design we really liked. We talked about the streamlined, modern development, architectural style. A lot of what we see sort of references the streamline, but it's not truly a streamline. This is a true streamline building as close as one can get to streamline in the 21st century, nearly 80 years after the style was popularized. So you've got good architecture, you've got infill where it's about the only thing commercial. We just don't see it working there, so we're probably down to multifamily residential. We've got good design, and we have new product to offer people that are looking for some units. And in these cases, they're larger units than we're familiar with, and that's a real missing piece of the puzzle. You know, the ones and twos, the studios, they're all there. So it's one of these, and I think I've talked to some of you about it. It's not something that I am going to forcefully advocate, nor forcefully speak against. I'm going to leave that to you and to do your own plus and minus list and see where you're at. In the final analysis, we have to come up with a recommendation. That's my job and our department's job and the city's job is to advise you and make a recommendation. And in that case, it was favorable. Do we have some concerns? Absolutely. But we did come down on the positive side on this one, and we recommend favorably with, stayed the same, right?
Okay.
12 conditions.
Okay.
Through the chair, through the chair.
I'm going to go a public hearing, let people talk
Okay, go
first.
13?
This one has the covenant and the.
I'm going to let anybody who wants to speak on this side
The
come up and
unity
speak.
was 13.
Thank you. So, okay, so, sorry. So with the unity of title
13.
would be condition 13. Covenant in lieu. That's our new condition 13. So we are recommending favorably with the 13 conditions
Gotcha.
as listed.
Come on, whoever wants to speak on it.
The applicant?
No, I'm going to have the public speak first.
Good evening. I'm Frederick Kongmeyer, residents of 625 Palmetto Drive. We have the variances, and these variances are necessary because we have actual laws and criteria for developing our neighborhood. You first say it's 20 dwellings per acre, and there's proposed 12. It's only a third of an acre. That equals 6 units, and they're asking to double that. Now, are we making a home? Are we making apartments, or is this going to be a dormitory? With each of the apartments, if there actually are 12 apartments in there, what do we have, 4 or 5 people in a dwelling with 60 people? Now we're asking for variances on their parking. Now you know how many people in Miami have trucks and big SUVs. Are they going to put them in those small spaces underground or on the bottom floor? They're going to park on the dead end. On my dead end. And it is unlawful to park at that dead end on the street. Am I going to have to be, every time there's a truck or an SUV that can't fit in their parking spots, am I going to have the police on speed dial to put a parking ticket out there? We already have some problems with that, but most of it tends to be on the south side where the Fairlane apartments are, the Fairway apartments. And that doesn't bother me. But every once in a while, they'll be having a party or something, and there's half a dozen cars parked out, even on the north side, on my street, backed up bumper to bumper. And I've tolerated that several times, and that's usually just for a party. But I just imagine if they can't get their big SUVs and their trucks in these little tiny parking spaces, where are they going to be parking them? Maybe they're going to go back in the alley. Is all that dirt and dust going to be, they're going to be parking back there in that alley and blocking that? Or are they going to pave it? The alley in the back there If they're going to pave it, how much? Is it going to go all the way through? Well, then it becomes just what Palmetto Drive was, a new shortcut to Hialeah. We're going to have a paved alley there, and more traffic is going to be going back through there, just the reason why we have the island on Palmetto Drive. And this thing is 3 stories. Now we know that good fences make good neighbors. And all of the residents in the neighborhood have privacy fences. This proposed building at 3 stories high is looking down right into my bedrooms, bathroom, and I'll be darned if I'm going to go holding on to my pajamas when I get in my hot tub. Now, I have some photos. Now, the solution would be, sure, let's build a privacy wall there that's 55 feet tall. Now, you're not going to be able to put trees in there that are 55 or 50 feet tall unless you actually bring in 55-foot trees, which probably cost prohibitive. But I do contend that this 3rd-story buildings with balconies that are going to be on the north side are going to be a first-class building for peeping Toms. Now, one of the solutions, again, sure, let's build a privacy fence that's 50 feet tall, and then we don't have to worry about people looking into my pot tubs. Or the Fairway Apartments have a quite ingenious solution. The north side, which is adjacent to the single property homes, has nothing but, let's get a picture here, their kitchens and their air conditioning units with nobody on a balcony overlooking your backyard. Right now, my backyard, and I'll submit these for you to look at, is a naked fence with they knocked down all the trees that were growing there on their side of the property, obviously, and I have no foliage, and it's a view into my backyard from 50 feet above is even better than my holding my camera above my head. So I'd like to have a solution to the parking, the number of units at 1/3 of an acre. Your criteria is 6 units. And for the traffic, there's the parking problems, the new shortcut to Hialeah if they're going to pave that back alley, and most of all, the privacy. That north side, if they're going to have balconies overlooking my hot tub and my bedrooms and bathrooms, is going to be just a peeping Tom paradise.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. Who's next?
Oh, and may I submit these to you?
Sure, of course.
They're pretty self-explanatory.
You did a good job explaining it.
Oh.
Thank you.
Come on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ileana Ruiz Garcia. It took me 20 years to be able to find a home that I could afford and liked in Miami Springs. I bought a home mid-September, so I've been in that house a little over 2 months. If I would have known there was going to be a 3-story building, and I'm neighbors to Frederick, overlooking my patio, my pool, that I have a privacy fence, a lot of trees, and also people parking, I would not have bought that home. It's very discouraging for somebody like me who's been wanting to live in the Springs for such a long time that in 2 months I find out there's going to be a 3-story building with units above the allowed, with a request to reduce parking. We already have on one side of the steel barricade people going around in their car and coming down Palmetto Drive. I can only imagine the additional cars of what's going to happen to our block. I totally oppose this. I think if we have to do it, let's limit it to the 6 units and to enough parking spaces that can account for all the residents that are going to live in those 6 units. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am? Excuse me.
Right
Up here. That's all right. Yeah, I know it's tough out there. What was your address again? I'm sorry.
617 Palmetto Drive.
617?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
How you all doing?
Good. Good.
Roy Rodriguez, 564 Palmetto. Many of you know me. You know, I'm pro developer. I'm a general contractor. I'm a little concerned about the fact that it seems to me we're squeezing 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. We have, yes, new units that may be allowed, but the units are all 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. The 3 bedrooms have a 4th room which they label as dining room. The dining room has 2 closets in it. So what I'm envisioning is going to happen here is I don't know of any family that doesn't have 2 cars, by and large. So if you have a 3-bedroom home, I'm assuming that there may be 3 cars. 3 times 12 is 36. That's more than you have parking spaces. That doesn't make sense to me. When you reduce the spaces to 8'5", and they're confined between the 2 structural walls in pockets of 3, you're only going to be able to use 2 parking spaces. Because if you have an 8'5" space squeezed between 2 columns that don't let you open your door, there's no way that you can use the 3rd space. You can't get in and out. It'll be very, very difficult. The off-site parking is going to inevitably end up on our side, on the south side, because there's already a problem on the north side. So I would really hope that we could consider this. I think that if they could work out some kind of deal with parking at the Bell South building, some kind of long-term lease as part of this package, as a required variance or something, or I think they have to reduce the size of the units. I don't know. I really would like to see this not happen, even though they won't be looking at my window or my pool. I'm on the too far away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roy.
Anybody else wish to speak?
Eula Carmeyer. I'm Ted's wife, Frederick's wife. I live at 625 Palmetto Drive. I would like to know if there's an emergency. How would ambulances get into that parking space with all those cars? And you've decreased the parking space by 6 inches. How would they get in? How would fire trucks get in? I mean, what are we building over here? It's just not feasible. You have the barrier. They're going to be parking on the other side of the barrier. That is my house. That's my privacy. And I'm going to have the police department on quick call because I'm not going to tolerate it. I have been living there for almost 20 years. I've been tolerating the trash of the other apartment complex. I've been cleaning it. I'm not going to tolerate cleaning someone else's trash. When you have 12 apartments, you put 20 on an acre. This is 1/3 of an acre, and you're putting 12? It's ridiculous. I mean, who's doing the calculations here? They come to me and tell me, open your shutters, do this, do that. Who's checking the code over here? All the variances are being broken. All the laws are being broken over here. What's going on? This is Miami Springs. Who's looking into all this?
We're doing that tonight.
Please do.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. But I'm allowed the applicant to speak. I could close the public hearing.
Mayor,
No, I'll leave it open. Let the applicant speak then.
Okay. Well, I had some questions relative to some of the folks who
ahead,
just spoke,
go ahead.
if I might. First of all, I'd like to thank the attorney, counsel, for attention to detail with the unity of title number 13 provisioning. Attention to detail. We have had throughout my time up here, anyway, and I'm certain long before that even, many issues relative to parking. While our city is very irregular in the structure of the properties, Jan Seeden used to sit over there and say, we're all over the place with the dimensions, the geometry of buildings and stuff. We've had many cases come in front of us also relative to the privacy issue, relative to traffic, relative to egress, all of the things that all of you folks mentioned up here in the well. We've always been able to figure out ways to accommodate these concerns over the years. The first gentleman that spoke about two things mainly. One was, what are you going to do about people parking on the other side? And the other thing was, somebody from the third floor can be looking into my hot tub, I believe he said. I think there's ways and means to overcome that. The young lady that just spoke a moment ago spoke about emergency vehicle access and egress. I'm sure that has been looked at hard by both sides of the discussion here before they would have even proposed the project. Typically, a lot of projects of this nature that have been done in this town over the years have been fairly well received, but they're not fairly well received right away, are they? People go, well, you know. I'm not saying that I totally approve of what's going on here with this, but, and we're going to hear the gentleman who's proposing the project here in a moment, in all fairness to him. As far as an access to Hialeah, I don't see that. I don't see him running that thing through. That's not going to happen. I don't think, at least if it comes to a vote here, you won't get mine for that. Absolutely not. We had an incident, a situation up on the other end of your street up Palmetto here recently. 29 Palmetto was mentioned earlier by the city planner. That went on for what, 3 or 4 months, at least. We had a lot of people. We had a room full one night here in Chambers. They came up here one after another, nose to tail, to the well to complain about that. Well, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. The developer decided he would back out of it because there was too much consternation relative to the project. One of my questions earlier, before any of you spoke, was I was going to ask Chris if there was any opposition to this, and you answered my question. I'll leave it there in lieu of the developer's presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Are we speaking after the presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
You speak now or before, whatever. He could give you the opportunity. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, staff. Daniel Martinez with Ramos Martinez Architects. I am here on behalf of the developer. I am not the developer, but I'm on his behalf. We've been working with Chris and the city now for about 6 months on this project. Project that, as you can see before you, was 2 derelict homes that I walked through the properties while they were in this state, and I could imagine some of the issues that were going on here and how they were affecting the neighbors. The developer quickly decided this is not something he wanted to be responsible for, and demolished the buildings and eliminated any of the issues that were happening there on the site. As you can see in this small little aerial here, the property lies at the end of what is Palmetto from 36th Street. There is a barrier there, a landscape barrier, that prevents any traffic from going north on Palmetto. I know why cities do this, and I know the issue that neighbors have when these streets are not closed and they become shortcuts to other places. But I think where you locate these barriers is where you draw your line between the transition of a quiet single-family neighborhood and a multifamily slash commercial slash heavily trafficked area. The zoning here requires that we provide retail or mixed use. The intent of that is that that layer along 36th Street is actually a buffer between that quiet residential and the busy 36th Street. So commercial traffic, the mix between those uses is what creates that buffer. Unfortunately, this property is not tied directly to Northwest 36th Street. It is actually detached. So any traffic or any commercial activity along 36th Street would not, as Chris mentioned, turn onto, or pedestrian-wise, would not turn onto Palmetto and buy a coffee or do their nails or anything that would happen, or any activity that would happen along in the ground floor as retail. So the planning thing, the responsible planning thing to do is to remove the retail component from there. That's an issue that the city supports, and we think makes better of that buffer between the residential and the commercial by removing that activity or that traffic or that noise in that area. The property also sits just north of what is a vacant parking lot for most of the day. We did a little rendering of what that appears to be there. This being 36th Street, this of course the warehouses across the street on the airport. This is your Bell South building, and this is our proposed transitional building. What is a transitional zone? For 150 feet south of the residential layer, we are limited to 3 stories. So the 3 stories are by right within this property. Beyond the 150, then you can go up to a much higher elevation. So what you would see here would be as high as possible and as loud and as busy a layer, a transitional layer that buffers single family to either multifamily or mixed use or high rise on 36th Street. What we decided to do was create 2 small bar buildings, which originally were 18 units. 18 units required by your code 36 parking spaces. In conversation with staff, they felt that 18 was too high a number in the density. That density comes from the economic viability of developing this property at today's cost of construction. So we reduced it to 12 units. 12 units would have required the same or a smaller number of parking spaces. However, your code requires that if we go to a high bedroom count, that number goes back up. So it isn't a parking space per door, it becomes a parking space per room. And we know that when units become 3 and 4 bedroom units, those are the kids, those are the extended family, those are the elderly, which don't really drive or use cars. And that's the advantage that your code doesn't have about reducing that number of required parking spaces that led us to the request for a variance. In addition to that, what we decided to do here was provide the larger units for that need that apparently there doesn't exist in rental, or it doesn't exist, but is a very low inventory in rental of 3 and 4 bedroom units. And I do agree with you, there's a mislabeling of 2 dining rooms in one unit. So one of them is actually a dining room, and then the living room becomes bigger in that 4 bedroom unit. Quickly to go through the building. Parking in the first floor with access in the front and the rear. pedestrian access in the front and the rear. This is what your facade would look like on Palmetto. Private drive, private parking, gated, pedestrian access, and then what we have here is an internal street, which means you go up, and within that space, I'm gonna come up with the, this is how you enter your units. You have your private street covered, your entrances, and your bedrooms up here. The units would look like this. You can color coded, this becomes one unit, and this is another unit, and so on. They're interlaced one with the other. So you have living dining kitchen with a dining, living dining kitchen with a bedroom below, and then when you go to the upper floors, bedrooms and bedrooms throughout. Very compact, very taking good advantage of the square footage. Finally, this is what our facades would look like, both on Palmetto and the rear. So the building mirrors the front and the back and the two sides. These are the balconies that the gentleman is concerned with in reference to how close they are to his property. Your code requires that the building be set back 10 feet from the residential neighborhood, whereas we're only 5 feet from the Bell South building. We addressed some of his concerns when we had the advisory board last month, and we explained to him that we would be willing to work in reference to his concern for buffering and landscaping, and we're listening. We're here to, as Councilman Best said, to work to become good neighbors. We are proposing a solid wall, so none of the noise from the parking lot goes in, and we're here to work with you as a new neighbor, as a good neighbor, to be able to resolve the issue, which I think is a valid concern of his. It isn't really a request on our part. It doesn't require a variance. By right, we could do this. I could design a 6-unit building right up against his property, 3 stories, without any variance requests. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to make it work and make everyone happy. The balconies are an integral part to the design. It becomes a statement in reference to the streamlined effect of the buildings. We think it helps the building. It improves the units themselves. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any concerns, and if neighbors have any also.
So through the chair, so sir, it is your idea to accommodate some of these concerns that these residents have. Is that correct?
Sure.
Is the parking issue, which was brought up on the other side of the median there, coming over to the north, where he suggested that if somebody had recreational vehicles, et cetera, large vehicles, 350, F-350, stuff like that, is the fix something as simple as putting no parking signs in those areas, or that would be free and clear?
Let me address the issue with the parking size.
Mm-hmm.
The parking size is identical to the Dade County parking size, 8.5 by 18.
I know, but this is a residential neighborhood now. Okay.
I'll get there. It is the parking size that's required throughout the county, which is no different from whether you're parking in your driveway or in a garage in a retail center or in an office space or so on.
Yes, I understand that. I understand that, but this is kind of an animal of a different color. I mean, this is 2 zoning situations coming at loggerheads, right?
Well,
From the 36th Street to residential.
I would prefer a smooth transition, not a loggerhead.
Okay, well, I possibly use that word out of context, but this is an exceptional situation. This is unique. This is unique, this project, in my view. And it will be the first time, I'll have the city manager correct me if I'm wrong, that anything of this nature has been done, at least that I can recall. So this is like trend setting. You know, we've always thought that anybody that lived on Oakwood or anything running parallel to 36th Street all the way down to Lejeune, as far as it goes, as far as there are roads that are parallel. Between there and the zoning that goes out to 36th Street, that was always a concern relative to what if, and here we are. This is a what if.
And whenever you're in a transitional zone, we do planning, there's a clear understanding of what happens in your high density area. There's a very clear understanding of what happens in your residential. And it's that transition that picks up a little bit of either side and then sort of ignores some of the issues from the other side. The open space required in 36th Street is far less than the one that we have to provide, but far less than the ones that are normally attributed to single family. And as you go back the other way, things start to move towards being more dense, higher, and so on. So the transition is always a where do you pick the line and what exactly happens. By default, we are limited by height, by other aspects of the building,
150 foot,
which allow for that easy transition. I know that you have some issues that have recently been built where there's a very hard edge between the single family and the adjacent structure to the south. This is what in our world becomes that transition where you're asking me if can you park an F-350. You can't park an F-350 in any 9x10, 9x20.
I only said that because the gentleman brought that grade of vehicle up. So
right, and
nothing against Fords, by the way.
But there is, and I think Chris alluded to it, there is a trend in less parking requirements. There is a trend in smaller cars. There is a trend in, and you had FPL here earlier today, in electric vehicles, which are not necessarily very big or very heavy. It's just we're moving in that general direction. I can give you an example that in the city of Miami, any building less than 10,000 square feet requires no parking within the city. And that's within a certain distance of a transit-oriented corridor. So there are issues that we're moving towards. So both in the way we use vehicles and in the transition that is occurring in this particular lot.
How about the paved alley or the paved sidewalk that was brought up earlier? What can you tell us about that?
We are proposing to pave the alley along the back of the property, and it's really to improve that condition.
This would not allow north-south egress, right?
What we are proposing is for you to be able to turn around along that alley and prevent that dust that's built up along.
The question is it going to be? Can you go through to Miami?
Can you go through and head up toward Poinciana, right through?
You could because we have access to the back of the alley.
Okay, then you answered my question.
So that's a public alley? That's a city's alley?
Yes.
And so we're going to allow that alley to be paved and have traffic on it? I'm asking that question.
Well, Chris has to answer that
Oh,
question.
Chris?
Well, I don't think it'll really impact we always encourage the alleys. We would love everybody to come along.
But this is an alley by homes. That's my concern.
We would love all our alleys to be paved so we didn't got rid of the dust, got rid of the ruts, the problems.
Let's get straight answers here. Are you going to be able to use the alley to get from 36th Street through to the Miami Springs residence?
No more or less than it is now.
Okay, but you will be able to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but right now you can do it, but it's a rock. It's just a dirty alley.
Correct. It's rutted, and most cities would dream of being able to have all of their alleys paved.
That's not what the question was.
Who's paying for that paving?
Yeah.
So we're vacating the alley to the applicant?
No, we're not vacating the alley. He's simply paving it for.
He's paving it for us, but really it's not for us because we don't want it, supposedly.
Well, I mean, Tom's not here.
From what
I would like to see it paved. I would like to see them all paved.
I get it, but you don't live on a house right adjacent to it. That's my concern. I'm listening to the residents, that's all. And that's why I'm asking these questions.
they're typically one way. They're 16 foot wide. They have garbage cans.
I understand all that. You answered my question. I have a question about the balconies. Were you done, Bob? I'm sorry.
Okay,
If you were not done,
Councilwoman,
I can wait.
Councilwoman, continue. I'll go after you. Go ahead.
The balconies are on the second and third floor, the ones that are facing the homes?
I'd like to respond to your alley concern, and then I'll
Okay.
answer the reference. We don't need the alley. We don't need the alley for any purpose of our building. The alley is accessed by this property as it is accessed by all other
Okay.
properties. As a matter of fact, I would propose to you, if I close off my access to this alley, anybody else can get on from the parking lot in Bell South or from 36th Street and continue to use the alley.
As it is.
If they wanted to drive through.
Yeah, they have a nicer car, they're not gonna do that.
Right. So
This is Miami.
So we are proposing to pave the alley at the city's interest in having a better condition there in the alley. If this is an issue for you.
No, I
we
just
don't-
want to
we don't need the
understand. I
alley.
want to get the big picture, and I wasn't here for the adjustment meeting, which sometimes I am, so I wasn't there. The balconies,
the balconies.
the balconies are on the second and the third floor, correct?
They are on the third floor.
Only on the third floor.
We have balconies on the third floor, and we do not have balconies on the second floor.
Okay, no, 'cause I was just remembering the image, so it's only one balcony. No, it's fine. If you're telling me, it's fine.
It's a balcony that the bottom portion of the balcony is closed
Oh,
off.
I see. It just has that little like.
So
Okay.
this is the balcony. It has a small portion that is open, and that is really the style which
Okay.
the building is portraying. So the bottom portion is closed, and then the level that has the kitchens and the living and so on is closed off. Does not have balconies.
That wall right there,
This wall is the same as the other wall.
and that wall on the other side are the homes or something else?
The homes are over here.
Are over there.
Right.
And
And
so
this
the
is-
balconies
this
are
is
the same
Belltown.
on the other side.
The balconies are the same on the other side.
And so if that alley weren't paved, couldn't like trees be planted there that would be high?
I think the issue with the alley is you have your
Utilities.
garbage and utilities back there. I don't think you can close it off.
Not close it off, but at the very edge, leaving the space of the alley.
We are proposing landscaping back there, yes. We're proposing landscaping along the alley.
I think it would be preferable to have something that grows back there than cement that would prevent something from growing, to at least provide some, some buffer. I know that there's already buffer, but some vegetative buffer that would have
Planting.
less impact on the residential concerns.
We don't have an issue with buffering this with landscaping at all.
I think that it would be, I don't know, I don't want to speak for all the residents, but if it were me, I would prefer the trees rather than the cement. So I don't know what the
You're
reason
saying
is.
as the surface of the alley,
Not just the surface, but at some point to buffer it.
right? The 10 feet that buffers, that separates the
Yes,
buildings from
yes.
another. But we don't have a problem with that.
So Chris, if I can ask Chris, this was presented to the planning and zoning adjustment, whatever we call that board now?
Adjustment.
Okay. All right.
Through the chair, there seems to be a lot of concern in Miami-Dade County, particularly in the last 10 years, over the term affordable housing. My question is to the presenter, and I recognize you are only representing the developer, but would you consider this affordable housing?
No.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
This is workforce and above housing.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Mayor. First of all, I wanted to thank you for considering investing in Miami Springs. I think very often, we use the term developers and we think, we think of something wrong with them, and actually developers are what makes our city move and grow. So thank you for your client for considering developing here. However, we have properties in Miami Springs, we have zoning regulations, we have requirements. And when somebody buys a property in Miami Springs, they're aware of that, and they're aware of what can fit in that property. A variance is asking us to consider changes. And a property owner, I want to say this, a property owner, what's presented here is everyone's right to do. All of us who own property in Miami Springs have a right to ask for variances for changes that we would like, reasonable changes, and it's up to us to consider them. Some of them are reasonable and are granted and others aren't, but obviously no one law fits every single condition, and that's why we have variances. So I just want to explain that this is perfectly within the property owner's right to ask for variances that would fit a property that you've purchased or that you think would benefit the investment that he's made in his purchase. That said, my big concern with this property, I'm not so much concerned with the increase from the 6 units to the 12 for that specific property because it is kind of away from the residential area. I don't visualize a better fit for it than residential there, and they're very nicely drawn units. They're nice size. I like that. The parking is what won't fly for me. I cannot vote for something that we're allowing you to increase the density and then allowing you to decrease the parking. It just doesn't make any sense. And the ones that are suffering, as elected officials, we have the responsibility to look at what's presented for us right now, but also to look forward, to envision the future. And the unintended consequences of not having enough parking, somebody coming home to your properties at night, and there isn't enough parking there, they're going to park across at Fairway apartment buildings, which means that whoever comes home from their shift there will not have a place to park, and they're going to park on the swale on Deer Run or on the swale on Palmetto Drive. It just happens. You're home late at night, you need to park, you need to be back at work the next day, you have to park your car somewhere. So it just causes this domino effect where even if it's not the people from your place parking on Deer Run or on Palmetto, somebody else will in that area. So that's my big concern. As far as the 3 stories, I just want to let the residents know that property has always been allowed to be 3 stories high. So, as long as he builds within the units, right now that you're allotted 6 units, you don't even have to ask for a variance for that. You could build a 3-story building with balconies. Pardon me? 5-story? Oh, yes. Oh, 5-story there. That's right, because of the residential right.
The reason that it's
So-
limited to 3 stories is because it contains residential. If it did not contain residential, the maximum
Would
height
be 5.
is 4 stories and 55 feet.
Okay. So I just want to get that across, that what we're really here, what we can do is look at what he's asking for a variance for. And there are a lot of things that you may not like, but that's what anyone who owns that property is entitled to do with that property. And I think the parking, the increase in density for the units, the most valid consideration there, because from 6 to 12 isn't that many units, but the parking, my understanding from speaking to Chris earlier today is you're asking to waive 11 of the 15 required parking spaces. Is that correct, Chris?
12 of 47.
12 of 47 required parking spaces. So it would bring it down to 30.
45.
Okay. Right, which that's a considerable number of spaces in late evening. Obviously, the people in the apartments near there, I'm sure many of them have late shifts also, and we're going to get into that a problem of, late at night, people wandering around and having to park on swales of other people's properties.
Just to sort of clarify the math that we're going through, it is almost 3 parking spaces per unit. So yes, it is a variance in your required code, but 3 parking spaces per unit is substantially healthy as far as the number of units to the number of parking spaces. For example, half of our units are 3 bedrooms, and there is a parking space for each one of those 3 bedrooms. The others are 4, of which there are only 6, and there is just not 1 parking space for that one last bedroom. If we do the math and correlate bedrooms to parking spaces, that's the math that we're dealing with. 3 for the 3s and 3 for the 4s. In our practice, you're lucky when you get 3 parking spaces for 1 unit anywhere in Miami. As
Well-
a matter of fact, anywhere that it's
And I want to
permitted.
make that a point, and that's what, in Miami Springs, we strive to maintain. We're different than most other communities, and you're right. In Miami, I know they're allowing buildings without any parking spaces because they expect everyone to use Lyft and Uber. And a lot of the young professionals that live in those places probably do use Lyft and Uber. That's not that's not Miami Springs. We have to consider the type of residents that we have here now. Perhaps things will change in 10 or 15 years and we'll adjust to that. But right now, obviously, that's not Miami Springs, and that's what keeps us different.
I'd like to
Yeah.
add something.
Go ahead.
So these apartments are like 3-bedroom apartments. So there'll be young people there that don't drive. Everybody is not going to have a car. It would seem to me. I want a question for the city. In terms of the strictness of parking, well, a couple of questions. Can the apartments have assigned parking spaces? Chris? Can they have assigned parking spaces? Like apartment 1, you have these 3 spaces, apartment 2, so that no one else could park there, and if they do, there'll be signs that say your vehicle will be towed?
Yes, there is nothing in our code that prohibits it. We typically discourage it because what happens if somebody's away for a couple of weeks, there are 3 or 4 spaces just sit there idle, while that may be a period of time where another tenant has some guests who
Okay,
can use
but
those spaces. We like it to be open for
that
all
could be an
time.
arrangement between them, but the reality is I'm more concerned about the residents having cars parked in front of their homes or on the other side. That's a big concern. If I were them, I'd be concerned about that. So it would be not a big thing for the city to mitigate some of that issue and make a very strict enforcement of the parking there.
We have never allowed it before.
Never allowed what?
The assigned parking in
Because?
residential buildings. Because for that reason, they sit vacant and unused while other people can be using them. It's the same theory maybe in some shopping centers you go to. The eyeglass store has these 3 spaces.
I know, but
and
I get you,
that
Chris.
type of thing.
I get you, and I think that you're really great in terms of what you do for us in the city. But right now, I'm not caring about that example because I'm caring much more about cars being parked in front of their homes or on the other side of the. So I'm seeing that point, and I'm seeing the point and the value that these could bring in terms of the size of the units, and that it would be nice for maybe younger people who can't afford to buy homes, who can buy those or live in those apartments. That would be a nice buffer transition property there. But I am concerned about the residents who bought their homes thinking that they're going to have all this privacy. And then I'm very adamant about buffer with trees so that there's privacy.
Well, and to address Councilwoman Zapata's point, condition number 12 in your packet says, in this regard, significant additional landscaping shall be added along the north property line to better screen the proposed project from the adjacent single-family home to the north. That's already in one of the conditions, number 12. Correct.
And that was in response to the comments that we
Okay.
got from the neighbors at that meeting.
I don't want anybody peeping into his bath thing.
By the way, that significant upgraded landscaping on the north doesn't mean this generic, it just widens by 3 feet for the length or we get more trees. We can work with the property owner and say, these are my real concerns. It's this 14 feet where my hot tub is located. It's this bathroom window. We can get very specific with where it can be beefed up generally, but then we can find some real touchstones that are of real concern and make sure that that's
I just want to make
larger,
sure
bigger,
that
more.
I want to make sure that we do that because it just seems to me from your presentation that you really care about what you're producing and the property and how nice it's going to be that we're not going to cut it off there and not take care of the residents' concerns.
This is our reputation.
Oh, I know.
Chris, and I guess the city attorney, could we add a condition about assigned parking spaces?
You,
Not
you
in the
cer-
code, but we,
You certainly could. There's nothing that I'm aware of in our code that prohibits that. But again, we've never allowed it before. It's been discussed.
I would discourage assigned parking spaces for that reason of when you get there, you know, especially if you're talking about we're giving them less parking spaces than they're allowed to have, and then we're saying, no, it has to be assigned for these people. So if someone has a 3-bedroom unit and they're an adult couple with children, they might only need 1 or 2 cars, and somebody else with 3 professionals sharing a 3-bedroom would need 3 cars. I don't see how assigned parking spaces, like I agree with Chris, I don't see how it alleviates the problem. It can just cause the problem of having to spread out to other areas.
By the way, keep in mind that the issue could be completely self-policing.
Right.
Our police aren't going to do it. We don't have a parking department. That would be completely internal to the building to keep track of that, which is another difficulty, if you will.
Chris, how about what we talked about today, extending the wall and removing that ramp that's there to prevent people from parking and walking
Well,
across?
it wouldn't prevent people from parking, but if we extended the wall along Palmetto, perhaps leaving one or both of the two sidewalks remaining, it's certainly going to discourage it. It's not as visible. You don't see, hey, I've had a hard time parking. I'll go around and park there and cut through. If there's a wall,
Right.
you wouldn't necessarily know what's on the other side of the wall. You might not think about driving around and parking there and cutting through. It's a bit of a walk, but it's something that we've discussed.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I like your building. It's very nice, very classy. I just have a problem with the parking spaces. Now, let me ask you something. You build the building, you drive up, and all the spaces are taken. Where would you park? I mean, knowing the area, where would you park?
Well, the area right now obviously does not have a building of this.
No, but that's not what I'm
density.
talking about.
No, but well,
The building is built, all the parking spaces are taken. Where would you park?
One solution is the assigned parking spaces. By the way, there's another solution, which is a modified parking space assignment, which means not 100% of your parking spaces are assigned. Each unit, for example, would be assigned 1 or 2 parking spaces, and then the other 12 to 14 parking spaces are open on a first-come, first-served basis. That happens in condos and in other buildings. So to assign 100% of the parking spaces sometimes becomes sort of self-defeating, because you may have a unit that only has 2 cars. So they have that third parking space that's assigned that they don't really use. So normally what we've done in developments like this is we assign 1 or 2 and then allow the balance.
Whose phone's going on?
For guests. Once again, I understand your situation and your hypothetical about I get there and there's no parking space. Obviously, you have a problem.
Where do you park?
And that is a problem. But I think in our practice, the 3 parking spaces per unit is more than enough, more than sufficient in any condition.
I think you're wrong. You're gonna have a parking problem there. You have no escape valve. The next place where you can park is blocks and blocks away, unless you go park in the north part and people's swales.
Oh, I understand when you
Is
have.
that alley going to make it accessible for people to drive nicely on a paved road and go into Miami Springs?
Well, I think we're on the record as saying that we have no intention of. We are willing to.
Yeah, but why are you paving it? Did we ask you to pave it?
No. You didn't ask us. It was
Sure.
two things that happened when we were proposing this project. One was we proposed to redo the landscaping in the island that blocks off the road, because we think it needs an upgrade, and the developer was more than happy to do that. The developer was also, in as good gesture, willing to pave that portion of the alley, seeing as that the city has an interest in it. The truth is, the alley is not needed for us to move in and out of our property. We could close off this building to the alley and not use it, with the exception of, I think, your trash dumpster, your trash collection is back there. And that would be more than enough for us.
So you will close the access down
We
here.
could close both of these access, and we would not provide or allow for any of these residents through this building to do that. But once again, that alley is open because it's a public way all the way
Answer
through.
my question. When you get there at night and there's no parking, where do you park?
No, I understand your hypothetical. I don't have an answer for you.
Right,
I
so
don't
you
have
don't
an
have an
answer
answer, I can't vote for this.
Councilman, could I ask one question related to the parking? You had mentioned, and I know I had spoken with Chris about it, about the possibility of negotiating something with Southern Bell for their parking.
Yes.
Would you be willing to come back to us with, after speaking to Southern Bell, and perhaps if you could get, say, a 5-year lease? I think in 5 years, obviously, none of us know how parking with electric vehicles, with Lyft and ride sharing, and all these things might have changed the landscape. If you could come back to us with negotiated lease with Southern Bell to allow for the parking spaces that you're requesting to give up, that Southern Bell would allow you to use those for your residents, I think that would alleviate some of our concerns.
We
or a
had
great
that-
deal of my concerns, at
right,
least.
We had that as an option. It really didn't become that much of a concern. If had we known, I would have come here with a lease
Okay.
to avoid further delay. We have absolutely no problem in leasing those spaces from Bell South.
I would like to see a
past their- past
five-year
their
lease,
work
though,
hours.
because obviously a
Right.
one-year lease, you know, anything can change. So if you could do that, and the other, and I'm just telling you from me personally, the two things that would certainly make me consider in favor of the project is the barrier wall on between Palmetto Drive, so that it between the residences, creating the barrier wall so that you physically would not be able to park on the swale of the homeowners on Palmetto Drive and just walk across. Right now, you just, you know, walk down the block. And so if you would extend that wall, and I think I spoke with Chris about that, about the possibility of doing that, so he could fill you in on that, so that it wouldn't be possible to just park on the other side and easily walk back to your buildings, should there be a lack of parking available.
I have no problem building a wall for 5 feet, but I would caution you from doing that to your neighbors, because sidewalks are meant for pedestrian activity. Once again, I have no problem doing it, if that would be the case. But somebody bought a house north of this property with the understanding that there could be a 3 or 5 story high building there, and that somebody could develop it. But they didn't buy those houses thinking that their sidewalk would be closed off, because it's a public way. Closing off, even in cities that close off streets, do not close off sidewalks. It's a little bit of
Okay,
first of
then
all,
that's a
it's
good point.
public-
That's
it's
something
a
for us to
public way.
consider, obviously.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I just have one more thing when the vice mayor's finished. Yeah.
I have a
Maybe I
request
can say
too.
something.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead. I want everybody
I'd like to
finish
see
first.
if you can close those two entrances too, or the regress to the alley.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. That could be a condition. Close off the back access to the alley.
That way that you minimize the traffic going into Miami Springs through that area.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I don't think that's anybody would want to drive through the alley with their car, and once they get north of this property, start going through the conditions of that alley with
You'd
the
be
dust and
surprised.
the driveway. And all, I mean, I'm saying
You'd be
they would probably, you know, sometimes it's easier to make 3 rights and make a left.
Right.
People would probably head to Palmetto and go around.
That's
But
right.
That does not that's not a deal breaker for us as far as access to the alley. I think access to the alley is more for a service thing than anything else. I think there was a concern about emergency vehicles. Emergency vehicles only have to be close to the building. They don't go into buildings at all. So the emergency vehicle issue here is addressed on the sidewalk. It's not, they don't go into buildings. They never.
Through the chair, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple more things to tie it up here. First off, who does the developer or the owner of the project intend to attract? What type of people are going to buy these units?
In the business
Professionals?
In the business of real estate, the best possible tenant you can get is the one you want to attract. And
Oh, obviously. That's rhetorical.
It's rhetorical in the sense that he's looking to target workforce and above units. The units are ample. They're not efficiency type. They're of the other nature, families. So the idea behind the second-story courtyard, where there is a social interaction, is that's the type of building that he wants to provide and the type of tenants that he wants to attract.
So the likelihood then of placing responsible people in these residences is probably pretty good, right? Is that a fair statement?
That would be fair, and if I was him, I would do the same.
I'm not going to sit up here, and I know some of my colleagues have spoken about redesigning this and redesign. I'm not going to tell you how to build your building. I'm not an architect. But I will tell you this, that a couple things that made some sense here. I agree with that I do not believe that a wall should be built. I'd like to see that be organic of in some nature between the residences and where they are, as opposed to a wall. I mean, a wall, come on. Help me with this, will you? But that's the other thing. The future of the Southern Bell Building, do we even know what that is? No.
From
So this is
our
all-
understanding, they're going to be there for a while.
Okay,
Mike,
this is-
wait, Councilman, I believe, Chris, if you could answer that, because I know I was impressed that he reached out to Southern Bell to inquire, and I think that's important for us to know.
Yes.
Our understanding is that while the building is reduced drastically in the amount of employees, which is why they have a surfeit of parking, they see a need for it into several more decades at least. I think
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking
Okay, Chris, thanks.
30 plus years. So
That's good.
we looked at that as a possibility that would be gone fairly soon, and then this property would make more sense combined with that for a big parcel with 36 street frontage, but it's not the case.
Yeah, based on what was said, I really don't believe, this is just my personal opinion, do not believe that parking is going to be a problem. I don't see that as a problem. I see other things as being a problem maybe, but not that. That's all I have, Mayor, thanks.
Okay, I'd just like to say that, number one, we're doing all this talking up here and making some decisions and different things, and boy, a lot of speculation, because I don't know if you guys can always read the tea leaves better than I can. But number one, the most important thing that has to be considered here is because it is a transition project. It's different than what we voted on before, where it's within a commercial or a public commercial or more of a unity with all the communities within the building. This is something different. In my mind, the most important thing is the parking. I believe that because the parking is so important here, because you're going ahead and impact residential people. It isn't like when you have parking on a downtown or circle where you go different places. So to me, the project has to have, there's got to be a calculation. I don't know, there's 33 spaces per unit. I understand your point, but I don't know if 3 spaces per unit will accommodate 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and so on. Because there's, you could go in the houses in Miami Springs where the children live. My next door neighbor has 4, they got 5 cars. Right down the street, 5 cars. And you can't answer the question of where the bleed over is going to be, and neither can our city planner, the bleed over of the thing. That's the most important part. As far as the privacy situation, I understand the gentleman's problem with that, and if it would have to be, and this is the last thing I'll say about anything about the building, if it would have to be somehow that side of the building they can't see the residents, I think that can be accommodated within the project. And I know it isn't going to give you the aesthetics that you want, but I don't think it will make any difference in what you're trying to do, in my opinion. But my thinking here is it has to go back to the drawing board, and there's got to be a better situation about the parking and what's going to happen with the bleed over of the people that are going to be visiting, and so on and so forth. If, in fact, the answer is with what is it, Bell South?
Southern Bell.
If that's the answer, if you could come up with that answer and accommodate it that way, maybe the project will fly. But right now, in my mind, there's got to be a little more work done to it.
2 issues, and I'm gonna, because I think we've narrowed it down to parking, and I think you're concerned with the privacy. If we, could it be, and I'm gonna ask maybe the city attorney, could that be a condition of approval? Which means if we engage in a 5-year lease for the missing parking spaces, would that satisfy the council?
Well,
that would be one condition. And
Yeah,
then
but I think that's right now is just to table it right now and do the negotiations and come back to the city attorney and the planner and then present this project backed up of what you've done to adapt to what we've talked about.
Okay,
Because I don't think we can do that negotiations here right now and change a site plan or do different things. I would rather come through the planner, through the thing, and then come back up to us. And that's how I would approach it.
I agree with
That's
that.
how I want it
I
done.
agree with that, Mayor.
And by the way, and I understand to just
I'm not a builder.
So it's
I'm not a
clear-
builder. My concern is with my residents that live here. I'm the one who put the barricades there in 2004 because of the cut through and the different things that was going on there. And I have, that's the east side of town, which sometimes doesn't get the loving care that it should get. Well, today it is, because we're gonna go ahead and make this project right. Why should we keep talking about the main concern about parking? Why should we continue to talk about it when that's the problem? So that's the problem, it needs to be solved. So that's my point, and that's what I think we should do right now. If the Bell South will give you your spots you need, and we can get a combination of what we want to do on the north side of the building, bring the project back up, and we'll vote for it, we'll accommodate it. But it is a nice project, but that has to be solved, that has to be solved.
But this won't have to go back to planning, right? If it's just the
Yeah.
parking spaces?
Whatever.
Well, there wouldn't be an alteration to the site per se. You'd have the same
Oh.
site with the additional lease.
I think
for
what,
parking
I
spaces.
think what the mayor is requesting is that the balconies on the north side be removed, put them somewhere else, so that they don't overlook the single-family homes. I think that's what he was talking about.
That is something that we could agree to. We could
Okay.
agree to.
Okay, I don't want to
the
discuss,
removal
I'm not going to negotiate here. You got the 2 points, I think, that come up with what's going on. One is the privacy for the north side. 2 is to create parking that will accommodate the bleed over, that people come to visit and have somewhere to go.
Right.
You can't have bleed over in the community. It's not right. It's not right to the people that live there or anybody.
No, I understood.
It's got to be right. It's got to be centered within the project, and I think you can do it. And I think it's going to take a little time, putting your heads together, and see if you can get it fixed.
Actually,
So
you need
I'm
to do
gonna
it
have-
because we want it.
I'm going to have a motion to. What do we need here, attorney? A motion to defer, or what do we want?
You can do a motion to defer and answer the questions that I think city manager posed. If the council were interested in adding the condition of having the lease with an adjacent property owner and providing for off-site parking, we could add that in as a condition now.
No, I'm not. I don't want to.
but-
No, I want it to go through proper channels and come back up to us. Okay.
So then, yeah, a motion to defer.
Motion to defer.
To January 13th.
January 13th.
I get a second.
You have a second, sir.
I want to call a vote.
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
No.
Councilman Petrolanda?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks
I
very much for
withdraw.
your presentation, sir.
We need to take a 5-minute break. I have to go do something.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, 5-minute recess. Sorry, Tom.
I think if you draw professional people, and plus the other thing is, there's an element of safety involved. If you get like a good stock of people in there,
Let me tell you, I was at a conference in San Diego in October.
Charlie Leonard. Hey, I didn't see you back there. So good looking, I didn't even notice you. Sorry about that. Okay, we go to case.
Charlie, you like the lights?
I love it. Thank you
Beautiful.
for the lights, by the way.
Hey, Charlie.
Oh, thank you.
Charlie Leonard.
Thank you.
Those are dynamite, man.
Thank you.
There's what?
They're
Right in front of
dynamite.
your building, though, there's 2 bulbs out. Maybe you could get them on the way out today.
Thank you, Charlie, for the idea. that you
Stay here,
gave us.
Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
Stay here.
Charlie, we're seeking funding to do that at the Circle now in
For
the
the
gazebo.
restaurant. No, we gotta do the restaurant.
Oh, yeah, that too.
2
yeah.
blocks.
All right, we're going to 11C, case 06V 19.
This is an application.
It's on.
It is? Yep. Application for variance for the property at 166 Westward Drive. Our research has indicated, as best we can tell, the property has been vacant for at least 70 years. It has never been built on. The applicant is proposing to construct a 4,963 square foot, 2-story mixed-use building, 5,000 square foot parcel of land. There is a 2,790 square foot ground floor retail. That's 1,944 in one retail space, 834 square foot in the other retail space, and 2 second floor apartments nearly identical in layout and size of 1,084 square feet in the 2 apartments. It's nicely designed. I would point out that there is only one property in the entirety of the central business district that will have a parking requirement, and that is this parcel. No other parcel has a parking requirement because parcels in the CBD are exempt. Whatever parking they have is what they have. If they have 1, they need 1. If they have 0, they need 0. It's only new construction that is not exempt from that. So because this is a vacant lot and new construction, and the only vacant lot, it's the only one that this parking requirement is going to apply to. Since it's 50 foot wide, you could never get more than 4 spaces when you need a handicap space at 17 feet in width. You get 4 spaces, that's all you can get. Unlike the previous project where we talked about and having a pressure valve in place to go, there's plenty of places for any shortage of parking to go here, whether it's on Westward, it's on our parking lots here north of City Hall, it's on the linear lots behind on the south side of Westward, plenty of places to go. It's nicely designed. Of course, we like very much to have the residential units introduced onto Westward Drive or anywhere really above retail. And it's also that nice balance where the retail or commercial on the ground floor is primarily used in the daytime. The residential units are primarily used at nighttime. It's very nicely designed, and we do recommend favorably with the 13 conditions as listed. This also has the unanimous support of the Planning and Zoning Board, of the Zoning Board of Adjustment by a vote of 4-0.
Okay. Open up to public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on the project?
I just have one question. How many stories
How
is
tall?
this building?
How tall is it
How
gonna be?
tall is it?
2. 2 stories.
Oh, okay. Fine, that's all I need to know.
Thank you. All right, do we want to hear from the applicant, or you guys?
I have no questions. That would be wonderful. Yeah.
I have a question.
Okay. Who?
So you're gonna have 4 parking spaces, correct? And these are gonna be for the apartment or for the business?
Right, just 4 spaces. Typically, they would be more for the apartment. The business would be using the public parking spaces in the neighborhood.
All right, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Anything else?
I just wanted to say that I think the building looks great and that empty lot there on Westward Drive is an eyesore. It's just so out of place.
It's a beautiful lot now. It's not
Well,
an
it's
eyesore.
nicely kept. It is nicely kept,
I
but
mean, I
it
think,
just,
you know, that's the
It's a
best
beautiful
grass in
lot.
Miami Springs. It's been growing for 70 years.
At least it gets cut,
so,
though.
and the other thing, from my perspective, is that it really is similar. It's using the same parking as everything else on Westward Drive, and we're only talking about 2 residential units, 2 twos, I believe.
Right.
So
Exactly.
we can anticipate possibly 4 cars in the evening, which totally, and then in the daytime you have the commercial, the attorney's office, and the retail.
Mr.
So-
Jackson, he apologized. He couldn't make it. His baby was sick. That's why he's not here. But he does live in Miami Springs, and his office will be using the ground floor, and his wife will be using the retail space.
Ah,
So I wanted to thank the owner for finding a project that just fits that lot so perfectly. Thank you.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, item is read.
I'll second that, Mayor.
I'll call the vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolano?
Yes.
Mayor Payne?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Start date? Start date? When are you all gonna start?
Well, I don't know about that.
I mean, it's 70 years. It's about time you guys start.
They want to move forward very quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manny.
Mayor, before we go to the consent agenda, is it possible to move up item 12A? Because Ladies Bell is here and.
Okay, you want to do the
From the
closures?
bridal- from the
Okay, let's
bridal-
go 12A, request for bridal, I don't know what that, a
Bridal
bridal shop? You'll come on. You two are getting married. Okay.
Okay, so she wanted to kind of rent, not rent, but like.
Go to the mic. There you go.
Okay. Hi. Is
Yeah.
that good?
Yeah.
She wanted to ask if she can, I don't know what it's called, like kind of close the street from one end of the, like one end to where the Zayas dentist is at, so we can have like kind of like a bridal show, if that makes any sense.
Okay, well, have you talked to staff? You guys?
Yeah, attached is the special events application in your packet submitted by Destiny Bridal requesting permission to close the 2 westbound lanes between Morningside and Esplanade Drive, see map attached below, for a bridal expo scheduled for Sunday, March 1st, 2020, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, and staff recommends
Approval.
approval? Okay. Well,
Through the chair, is there your intention for any more events to occur there, or is that the only one that on the horizon right now?
you think you might have more,
In the future, yes.
you try, see how this one goes and maybe,
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you. Got
How
it.
how many folks are you planning to have that day? ¿Cuántas personas ustedes va a tener ahí ese día?
Well, she was hoping to do even like radio commercials and everything, so, you know, we're expecting like a good amount of people.
Like 100, 200?
have you done it before, anywhere?
Well, we attend as vendors to others, but we've never
Done your own?
Do their own.
No, no, okay.
I like that.
I would just, Mayor, if I may, we have at least, I think, 1 bridal shop and possibly 2 here in the Springs. Will you be coordinating with them?
Well, yeah,
With-
we own one of them.
You own,
Yes.
oh, you own one of the
Yes.
shops here. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And there's another one, I think, too?
Well,
On the,
I don't know.
okay.
Just let them do their project, Maria. Maria,
No, she's
please.
just asking.
Just let her do the project.
May I
Yeah,
ask
she
questions,
can-
Mayor?
You got another question?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
thank you. And the flower shop, oh, okay,
and the bridal
wonderful.
shop.
Latest.
Will this be something open to, the project itself, will it be something open to the public to come view, like a runway show, or to see vendors? Is it, can you give us a little idea of what the event will be?
Okay, so she's saying that, yeah, like, we expect to, you know, we just want the brides, also, like, it wouldn't be bad for the public to come in, you know, so people can see that there's people around. But we're gonna have tasters and, like, tasting, like, catering companies, which are gonna, like, be giving out free food. So, you know, she wants to charge an entrance, So you don't have to be a bride to go in, but she wants to charge an entrance in order
Okay.
to, you know.
Gotcha.
And the last thing I wanted to ask is that you included somehow that venues for brides receptions are, we have them available at our country club and also Curtis Mansion, if you could include that as part of your event somehow.
She already works with,
Them?
She
Okay,
works with
great.
them.
William,
Thank you.
is there going to be any cost to the city? Police? No, nothing like that?
Not with
The
the amount
Sunday.
of people she's expecting.
Sounds like a fun
Barricades?
event.
Put up the barricades and stuff like that, that's
That's
pretty
it.
much it.
It's minimal.
Okay.
Okay, I entertain a motion.
Motion to move the item, sir.
Second.
Call a vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolano? Mayor Bain?
Yes, okay.
I buy my flowers from her. I have for 5 years.
Did my daughter's wedding.
I'm telling
at the
you, man.
country club, too.
All right, we got a request for a women's club closure.
well, do we want to go back to the recommendation or the?
Yeah, do the women's club, the recommendation, and we'll
Okay.
get that out of the way. Is anybody here from the women's club? Well, now they're not getting it.
Okay, well, I am, no. I am on the Women's
Then you
Club,
can't
so.
vote for it.
And, okay, I won't vote for it, but since.
Let him read the memo.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say they weren't going to get it.
Just relax.
Why wouldn't they get it? They get it every year.
Go ahead.
You want to do that one,
Yeah,
too?
read the memo before the
This is
record.
a request to close Park Street at 200 Westwood Drive on both sides. For this event, once again, this year was also done last year. They will request a certificate of liability for the city as additionally insured as usual. The event is the 5th annual Free Community Health and Wellness Fair. Healthy People, Healthy Planet, hosted by the Miami Springs Women's Club. Scheduled for Saturday, January 11th, 2020, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on 200 Westwood Drive. And I also had a request from them to try and see if Commissioner Sosa can provide them the stage that we use at the events in the circle. So I put in a request, and I'm waiting to hear back from her office.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to move item 12B.
Second.
Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolano?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
What was it, walnuts? Walnuts?
Yeah.
Walnuts? Aye. Hey, yes. Okay, we have a consent agenda, 9A.
This is a recommendation by the golf course that the council approve an expenditure in the amount of $15,878 to Ovas and Company LLC, the lowest responsible quote, after obtaining 3 written quotes which are attached for repairing and replacing the asphalt down at the down at the golf course maintenance facility, as funds were budgeted in the fiscal year 1920 budget.
Through the chair, motion to move.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolano?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes, we go to 10A, pedestrian bridge update.
As Councilwoman Mitchell is going to fill you in on some news we received from the county about this project.
Yes, first of all, I wanted to thank the council members here that voted for the resolution to have the county and FDOT build a pedestrian bridge to connect our community with Okeechobee Metro Rail Station. And the pedestrian bridge would be adjacent to, alongside the FEC tracks that occur right now. As most of you know, or as many of you probably know, very often our residents use the FEC tracks and walk illegally on them to access the Metro Rail Station. This is a big sustainability movement for our city. We have to look ahead. Obviously, the roads are getting very congested. Uber and Lyft solve the problem of parking, but they certainly don't solve the problem of congestion on the roadways. So providing our residents the opportunity to use mass transit to connect to the Okeechobee Metro Rail Station, which we can see from Miami Springs, and we can throw a rock to, but we can't access because of a canal in between us, is just a very important future provision that we're providing for our community to allow them connectivity with public transit throughout Miami-Dade County. Also, this falls right in line with the first mile, last mile, and the SMART plan that the county has set of trying to make sure that where is mass transit available, that they provide good, reasonable, feasible access for pedestrians and bicyclists to get there. The good news is that after the resolution from the council members up here that voted for it, which was wonderful, we presented that to the county, and at the last transportation planning organization meeting in November, we got the news that we were approved for the project.
Push the button. The button.
The county, thank you, Bob. The county has adopted the project and recommended it that FDOT approve the project with the engineering, the money for the engineering costs to come out in 2020, summer of 2020, I believe, William? 2021 for the design, and then in 2023 with the money for construction. So we're talking within the next 5 years reasonably. This is really a big step for us to have this, to provide this for our community. And the best thing about it is because the Okeechobee Road dips over there on that, where I'm talking about is North Royal, Poinciana, and Ludlam, where they meet the railroad tracks. So because Okeechobee dips there, this isn't going to be an unsightly overhead pedestrian bridge like we have by the high school. It's actually going to be at grade level along the FAC tracks, and it'll be made to be quite attractive. So it'll provide a lot of connectivity also because we are a bike path community, and that connects us with Ludlam Bike Path and provides connectivity from there for us, everyone in our community, but also in Virginia Gardens. So again, I wanted to thank the council for approving the resolution for this to allow us to pursue the county to pursue this project.
Maybe they'll change their mind and give us the money for Royal Poinciana.
The money for this comes from Mayor. The money for this TOP is a TOP project that is different funds, different FDOT funds than the North Royal Poinciana project.
Okay.
So we are tapping, I'm glad you brought that up, because what's great about that is these are special TOP funds that are available to communities for these connectivity projects, and we would not receive any of that if it wasn't for this project.
It is all federal funding.
Right.
It doesn't come from the state. It comes from federal funds.
So instead of going to other communities, this is money that's coming to our community, which I think is great also.
Okay. We go to 10B. 11B.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this is a request ad hoc art and public places committee that will be assisted by staff trained in the county's procedure to fulfill the mandates of the Miami-Dade County Ordinance pursuant to Section 2-11.15 of their code, which is attached. The committee will be assigned by project managers, architects, engineers, and representatives from the staff. So basically, every project that we do as a municipality, we are required to do art in public places, and we are required to put 1.5% away from the project away towards art. And out of that 1.5, it requires that you hire an artist through a procurement process. And you also have to put away a certain dollar amount. It's 3% away of the 1.5% away for maintaining the artwork at the end. So in order to assign an artist, we have to have a committee to review the artists, and it has to be done through basically the county's process.
Mm-hmm.
Can I appoint my appointment now?
Sure.
Charlie Leonard is going to be my guy at the ad hoc committee. He was nice enough to do
Excellent. Nice. Through the chair, my appointment will be James Bushell, who's a local artist, 249 Springs Avenue. Buschell.
it. Mr. Petrolanga, you don't have one yet?
Her phone number?
Tomorrow, and you?
I'm sorry?
I don't
didn't
have
hear-
one yet.
No, they don't have one.
Use Charlie, but the mayor took Charlie.
And you have one?
Yes, I do. My appointment is Patricia Romeo, and she is the Director of Art and Public Places for Miami-Dade County.
Okie dokie. So we got 3. They can still start. That's a quorum, so.
Yep.
So you don't, you know.
The problem is that I need to have the committee, everything completed in order to get the process.
when?
And we should have done it today's meeting. And the process is because we're on a very tight timeline to be able to start advertising, and I have to have this committee before, and we were expected to advertise in the next week and a half.
Tomorrow morning, you'll
But
have
we
mine.
received notice that we were supposed to have this tonight?
Sure.
Yes.
No, I
Yes.
didn't see that.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to.
If you
get
could
ahold
get
of it.
somebody.
Tomorrow morning, I can have.
I even
some.
gave some samples, of the 2 projects, the recreation center and the aquatic center. I gave who was appointed to each board.
Okay, we go to 10C. Approval of a Fifth Amendment agreement, the Fifth Amendment
Yes, Mayor and
agreement
Council,
with-
this is our agreement.
You keep hitting it here.
The current agreement expires at the end of December. So this is a new agreement for another 1-year term. And in this agreement, on item number 2, they are agreeing to reimburse the city for any legal costs related to the annexation lawsuit.
Do you want to?
And I also believe you want to give the update later or after?
We'll vote on this, right?
Yeah.
I need a motion.
You got a motion to move item 11C.
I got Councilman Petrolanga the second. Call a vote.
Vice Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Councilman Best?
Aye.
Councilwoman Zapata?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolano?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes, so we go to City Attorney. Anything from you?
Mayor and Council, after the last council meeting, we had a win in the Sandra J. versus the city's annexation lawsuit. Our litigation team moved for summary judgment and won on several counts. So there's one remaining issue pending regarding whether the annexation would create an enclave. And that is the one remaining issue in that litigation, so we'll be looking at how we move forward with that case. And the other aspect of it is that the county commission could be hearing the annexation application as early as February of 2020. That's all we have.
Okay, sounds good. Anything from you, Councilman Best, tonight?
Yeah, one thing, and I thought I'd share it with all of you. I was going to just tell William on the side, but I think that you should all be aware that my wife had a situation here a couple weeks ago where she was at work at AAR and she had to take her truck down 36th Street to have the headliner reworked or something. And then she had a problem, so she went back up and had to leave it at Doral. So she ended up walking almost to Lejeune Road back and forth. And she said, you wouldn't believe this. And I promised her I'd bring this up. The trash in front of the buildings on 36th Street and some of these projects, some of these hotels that are being constructed and stuff, she goes, it is an embarrassment to the city. I says, well, I know we have a street sweeper that usually comes through there, but I don't believe it does 36th Street, though. No. But if we could somehow get it to code to get out there and get these people, put some teeth into this and have them clean it up. She said, Bobby, she goes, it's an absolute embarrassment to the
You're
city.
talking about the construction stuff?
Yeah, on street side now.
Yeah.
Yeah, she walked the sidewalk the whole way down and back. I said, I haven't done that in years. She goes, well, I did this. And she said, it's awful. So if I could just leave that with the manager.
Okay.
And, I had one other thing, but I'll,
Merry Christmas?
in lieu of that, Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you. Mary, you're good.
Councilman, Vice Mayor, huh? Oh, City Manager? City Manager?
I just wanted to wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully good tidings to all.
There you go. Really nice.
And I think Tammy's got some events that she wants to mention to you.
I just wanted to remind you of the toy drive, 14 14th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. here on 1 Curtis Parkway. Also, we have the toy drive we're still doing for at the rec center. The drop-off times we have them posted on our downstairs televisions. And also, we still have the holiday still going. I think we have up to 7 or 8 homes that have been nominated. And I just want to remind everybody to continue to nominate homes for the holiday. Yeah.
Council Vice Mayor, you?
I wanted to thank Charlie Leonard. I can't think of all the names now. The insurance, Coastal Insurance, and John Kenny, and Aldo. Yes, for John. I said John Kenny. I already said John Kenny. But for
really
for lighting up Westward Drive in time for the holidays. Thank you so much. It was such a great idea that y'all had, and just really just makes it a fun, nice season for all of our residents. So thank you. I wanted to just mention that I had the opportunity this past weekend to be in Phoenix, Arizona, on a travel scholarship provided by NALEO, which is the National Association of Latin Elected Officials, and it was a public finance and management seminar. 2 days of seminars, and they were excellent. I was telling William I was just amazed at the quality of the speakers. It was sponsored by Wells Fargo and several other banking institutions that make loans to cities and public bonds to cities, and it was just very informative and helpful in bringing information of oversight of public projects and management of them and financing of them. And then the last thing I wanted to, before I say Merry Christmas, I have only 16 more comments, Mayor, but I'll try to summarize them.
I'm sorry.
But I'm going to bring them down to maybe 10.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is unusual. I mean, come on. That's
All
why
right.
I let you go so everybody else don't have anything to
I know,
say.
and I appreciate it. And I'm going to bring it down to 10 from the 16. I'm going to scratch some of these
I know
off.
you want every bit of it. You're like the little piggy that got there first. You're going to let go. But go ahead.
You sure? You want me to continue?
Sure, finish.
Okay, thank you. I thought you would. I knew you would. Figured. No, the last thing I wanted to ask is with the FP&L, the presentation that FP&L made on the public chargers, I know that the electric vehicle chargers are limited. It's first come, first served to communities. They really look to Miami Springs as being a sustainability partner for them. So that's why they reached out and offered to install these electric vehicle chargers free of charge for us and operate them, install them and operate them for us. So I wanted to see if, and I don't know if we can do it now for the next meeting, to ask the city manager to identify locations throughout the city on Canal Street and possibly in near the rec center and aquatic center of 2 parking spaces to allocate, and maybe some other places. This is the time to jump on this. We had to pay for the one at the golf course. I want to make sure that we take advantage of this wonderful program that FP&L is offering to our city. So do I have to ask for a consensus, Mayor, on,
consensus.
For the city manager to look in the Springs and come up with suggestions of ideas where we can allocate?
I would agree with that, as long as it comes back to us before something happens.
Yes, of course. It's just...
Next meeting. The next meeting?
Yes?
Okay. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. And with that, I want to wish happy holidays to everyone.
Councilwoman, anything?
A couple of things. First, it's unfortunate that the ordinance that I had submitted for discussion was not only not tabled in my absence, but turned down. And I just want to say that I understand that we can't have bulk garbage, pickup, change for every home that doesn't have an alley, but I will tell you that the homes adjacent to Westward Drive, going north and south, mostly the ones that are going north, have no alley. Cherokee Street, which I happen to live on, has no stop signs all the way down, and there's garbage every single day. There's a black recliner this morning, if anyone needs a black recliner, wants to pick it up, a block down. I feel like I live in Hialeah, and that my being on this board has had no impact on how my street looks. So just wanted to let you know how I feel about that. I have another question pertinent to something that happened today. The approval of that project on 29 Palmetto, did that not have balconies that were overseeing properties? I don't remember. I just wanted, before I forget, to call back and ask.
I think so.
Remember the 29
29,
Palmetto apartments that we approved that were
yeah.
going up? I was removed from the room, so I didn't listen to all of the thing, and I read part of the minutes after that. But that did have balconies that were affecting residents.
I have to check, I don't remember.
Yes, it was, because the residents on the other
Are
side
you
were the.
asking the question, or are you
Well,
telling us?
No, I'm
I
telling.
just want to know, are you asking or
I
telling?
am
They said
asking,
they don't
but I'm
know.
not speaking to the city manager. I'm speaking right now to Bob, who's saying no.
I don't recall. I could be
Okay,
wrong.
so
I
you
could,
don't recall, but
I don't.
I had a lot of residents that came to me then, so I just want to make sure that if I was wrong, that I just don't recall that. So if the city manager can please
I'll
check
find
that
out
for
and
me.
let you know tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Petrilong, anything from you?
I do. I have a question. List of homes nominated. Tammy, where can we find that information?
The homes that have been nominated?
Yeah, they're in the website.
Clerk's office, right?
So it goes through, I forward everything that comes in through information at miamisprings.fl.gov, comes to me, and I forward those to Juan, so Juan has the complete list.
But they're not on the website or anything?
No, no.
Because I don't want to be, I drove around last night. There's stiff competition out there. A lot of homes are.
Nominate.
Nominate.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to nominate it. They've been nominated.
Add it and just send it, and
They'll
if it's
still-
a duplicate.
They'll see
Okay.
that. They'll see that.
All right.
Yeah. no
All
more.
right. The other thing is I want to commend Omar and Tom and their staff for putting up 2 back-to-back
Beautiful.
outstanding jobs.
Yes.
Oh, really?
The tree lighting ceremony and the parade and Christmas at the gazebo. Great. Every year they outdo themselves. This year was no different. I mean, good turnout, great weather. I don't know how they do it, but they always have good weather.
Look out.
So I want to make sure I commend them for that. I want to make sure that everyone is aware that they're the ones who put this together. Omar and his staff, Tom, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Yeah,
Same
thank,
to you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, there were so many nice comments about the new lighting down Westford Drive.
Unbelievable.
It was pretty neat.
I saw it on the way here tonight, actually.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
I'm sorry. I forgot to let you know that Hibiscus Art Guides, that's the new art people that are down in the studio. That's who's, they're going to be there December and January. I got a story that Tom the other night at the country club, I was there in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
She had a little medical problem. She's 92 years old. She went down, and the rescue came, and they laid her on her back and put her feet up on a chair, and she started to come back. Her blood pressure went way down.
Sydney Garden?
Yeah, and went down, and I know if you all know Sydney, she could talk a lot, you know. So Sydney's laying there, and she's coming back, and everybody's okay, we're going to take you to the hospital. And she fought them paramedics so hard that they didn't take her to the hospital. She says that's the 4th time Ken Armandola said he's seen it happen to her.
And Kenny Amendola?
So, but the funny part of the story was that everything was okay, and she come out, she played the games with us and everything. But when she was sitting on the chair, she told me, boy, it's so nice to see all these young men and officers come take care of me like that. I guess at 92 years old, I got such a kick out of that, but she's doing good and everything's okay.
Good.
I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas,
Thank you,
Happy
Mayor.
New Year, and remember that there's that fella that always take you somewhere when you need to be picked up. His name is Mr. Uber.
Mr.
This
Uber.
meeting's adjourned.
I thought you had 17 things tonight, Bill.
Transportation Planning Organization, it's Miami-Dade County's.
It's TPO. TPO.